Since the early 2000s, James Franco has been a recognisable actor on a global scale. From his appearances in the Spider-Man trilogy, Pineapple Express with ex-frequent collaborator Seth Rogen, to films such as Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the man has appeared in films across all types of genres. However, you may have just realised as I'm telling you this, or when you saw the title of this video, that James Franco has essentially disappeared across all forms of media, and sadly there's a reason for that. We haven't seen James Franco these past 4 years because back in 2019, years of alleged sexual misconduct accusations over several years had accumulated in a lawsuit, with long-term friend and collaborator Seth Rogen stating that their friendship and dynamic has changed and that he has no plans to work with James Franco anytime soon. It must have taken some serious damage for a close friend to turn their back like this, and in this case, Seth Rogen has a pretty good reason to. So let's get this depressing show on the road. We have to go all the way back to 2014 when the first of multiple accusations against James Franco began. This exchange involved Scottish teenager Lucy Clode, who was visiting New York when she was 17 and took a pic with the actor outside, which was during the time his show Of Mice and Men was on. After tagging the star on Instagram when uploading this pic, it didn't take long for Mr. Franco to begin appearing in her DMs. The two began exchanging messages, with the actor focused on her age, which was 17 at the time, and getting a little too eager about what hotel she was staying in and if he should rent a room there. For most of the exchange, Lucy was understandably skeptical that this was the James Franco messaging her, so much so she even had him send a selfie with her name written on a piece of paper. The conversation was eventually leaked, and it didn't take long to do some damage control from James Franco as he appeared on Live with Kelly and Michael.
I guess I'm just a model of, how social media is tricky. It's a way people meet each other today, but what I've learned, I guess just because I'm new to it, it's like you don't know who's on the other end. I use bad judgment and I learned my lesson.
Now, in this instance, whilst no crime was committed, the messages alone were embarrassing to read considering he's freaking James Franco and could pick up anyone. To see him at this desperate to meet up with a 17-year-old Scottish girl in a hotel room. After this first strike, things would only get worse for Mr. James Franco in the coming years. Moving to 2018, it was at the Golden Globes when James Franco won Best Actor in Musical or Comedy that things really began heating up for him. So during his acceptance award speech, James Franco was donning a little pin for Time's Up in support of the Me Too movement, which protested sexual harassment against women. This is where the hypocrisy kicks in. It all started when former actress Ali Sheedy put out a series of tweets which strongly indicates that James Franco played a part in her leaving the film and TV business. Whilst these were vague accusations and the two did work together on a play, Ali quickly deleted the tweets, with James Franco responding to this particular accusation on Seth Meyers.
Yes, I had a great relationship with her. She took the tweet down. I don't know. I really don't.
Not curious enough though to reach out to her as someone that you had a good relationship with before, and to try to understand why she would have done that?
I don't know. It was so shocking. I don't know. I guess I'm just letting it be.
So I mean, right now, these two first instances, whilst they seem a little iffy, there's nothing concrete that would outright suggest that James Franco has committed any sexual misconduct here. But you know the say there's no smoke without fire? Well, a few days after the Golden Globes and his appearance on Seth Meyers, the LA Times released an article in which 5 women had come forward and accused James Franco of inappropriate or sexually exploitative behaviour. One of those women was Violet Paley. She briefly dated the actor when she was around 21 years old. She described visiting him on a student film set Franco was working on before the two drove to a different location, and then the actor had persuaded her to perform oral sex on him. In her comments to LA Times, she stated that this was an act she had never done before with him, so suddenly his penis was out and she was having her head nudged down to perform the act. Paley further added that she felt off about it and upset, as well as thinking it was her being dramatic about it all. James Franco's attorney denied her allegations when reached for comment. Then there's James Franco's Studio 4 film school. Opened in 2014, the film school promised to nurture and provide opportunities to students through Franco's own production company, Rabbit Bandini. But after the school officially closed in 2017, allegations were made against the actor, as well as a multi-million-dollar lawsuit which was filed against him and the school. So what happened? Firstly, students came forward such as Devin Labella, who stated that while smaller parts in his film projects were offered and held exclusively for students, These were often opportunities for parts that required nudity. Labella went on to explain that given she had no agency representation, this was essentially her only opportunity to get some auditions for parts. This process typically involved her and other classmates having to upload these auditions onto their website to be reviewed. Katie Ryan, who met James Franco and took several classes at his school, remarks that he would make everyone think that there were roles for them on the table in his projects if they performed sexual acts or took their shirts off. She also added that these roles were usually for prostitutes or hookers. Then there was Sarah Tiffer Kaplan, who not only was a student at the school, but was also involved in a masterclass for sex scenes. Yet Studio 4 offered a masterclass for sex scenes which would set you back $750. In the eventual lawsuit that was filed, it stated that to get into this class, you'd have to film a nude sex scene as an audition. This would be then sent to James Franco to review, and the actress would have to sign away all her rights to the recordings. Now, of course, once you got into these classes, these women were promised opportunities from James Franco's production company and other projects. In 2015, James Franco asked Sarah if she wanted to feature in an indie film with him, The Long Home, which also stars Courtney Love. Of course, the part for Sarah was a prostitute, and it would require her to perform nude, which she further alleged involved her having to sign nudity agreements for any film Franco wanted her to feature in. A producer for the film eventually asked her and other women to participate in a bonus scene that was an orgy. This involved them all appearing fully nude with James Franco, who went on to stimulate performing oral sex with each of them. Where things got messed up is that she said that he removed a clear plastic guard that would cover their vaginas and then continued to stimulate the sex act with no protection. The same year in which this damning report from the LA Times came out, a lawsuit was filed against James Franco, in which it alleged that he and his partners created an environment of harassment and sexual exploitation both in and out of the class. The lawsuit further alleged that Franco and his school took advantage of these students to push past industries for safely performing sex scenes and nudity, as well as denying students the protection of nudity riders, as well as other industry guidelines for protecting actors and actresses in nude scenes. Over a year or so later, whilst meetings between the two parties occurred, and during a time where James Franco was laying low, details emerged in February 2021 that the actor agreed to pay $2.2 million to settle the sexual misconduct and fraud lawsuits. As part of the settlement agreement, this statement was put out. While defendants continue to deny the allegations in the complaint, they acknowledge that the plaintiffs have raised important issues, and all parties strongly believe that now is a critical time to focus on addressing the mistreatment of women in Hollywood. Towards the end of 2021, James Franco appeared on the Jess Cadle podcast, his first interview in years, in which he addressed the lawsuit and his own personal issues. Across the allegations I've referenced in this video, James Franco denied any of this happening. The host went on to reference some of the lawsuits in which it alleged that Franco, through the school, tried to create a pipeline of young women who were subjected to his personal and professional sexual exploitation in the name of education. Here was his response.
Look, I'll admit, I did sleep with students. I didn't sleep with anybody in that particular class, but over the course of my teaching, I did sleep with students, and that was wrong.
Now, I've never been interested in a career in teaching, but I feel like not sleeping with students is probably rule number one if you wanted to become a teacher. Since all these allegations and lawsuits came out these past few years, James Franco has yet to appear in any feature film of any sort, with his last accredited appearance being Arctic Dogs, which bombed at the box office. It still remains to be seen if we'll see James Franco return to his former fame and glory of the 2000s and 2010s. I've spent a good amount of time reading through all of this, from the allegations made by these women to the way James Franco has responded to said allegations, and honestly, I'm left unsure of what to think. Don't get me wrong, everything points to James Franco at best being an absolute creep who focused on hooking up with barely legal women. Of course, there's nothing legally wrong with that, but if you're in a position where dads wouldn't leave you around their 17-year-old daughters, especially whilst you're now in your 40s, that's some serious red flags pinned onto you. And in the same interview with Jess Cadle, he revealed that after becoming sober from an alcoholic addiction which he developed at a young age, he developed a sex addiction. The actor remarks that It's such a powerful drug, I got hooked onto it for 20 more years. The insidious part of that is that I stayed sober from alcohol all this time. I wouldn't be surprised if we begin seeing the actor appear in smaller projects, but I can't see him featuring in any blockbuster films anytime soon. After being away for 4 years, I'm sure movie studios will be closely watching the public perception of him as he gradually returns to the limelight. Who knows what will happen? All I can say is I'm glad I'm not a 17-year-old girl who has caught the eyes of James Franco. Let me know down in the comments what you make of all of this. Also, around 96% of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, so I'd appreciate it if you quickly subscribed if you liked what you saw here. Catch you all in the next video. Peace.